Yeah, we know. Good morning. Thanks for joining us for our July coffee meeting, and we're happy to have you here. So just a couple of housekeeping. If you're not talking, please place yourself on mute because we are recording. Just makes it a little easier. Uh, if you have a question, you can use the chat box, and we will be checking it. And I think if you're speaking, because I don't know that everyone knows each other, please introduce yourself and where you're from and your company. And that's all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I think it'll be a quicker call than what we normally have. So today we're just going to talk about the update of the Chicago Charter Sightseeing Ordinance and what we're looking forward to starting August 1st. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And we're also going to hear from Chris Weiss of Chauffeur Driven regarding the upcoming show. But before we go to Chris, I would like to introduce the ILLBA Board of Directors for this year. First, we have Kaya Armagan of Flash Limousine and Bus. And we have Beth Cox of Cox Livery. I saw Beth on here. Hi, Beth. We've got Paula DiBiase of Chicago Coachworks, who is also our secretary, as well as our executive director. We've got James Jordan of Lux Tux Transportation. Did not see him on here. We have Lynn Kafkes of Galaxy Limousine. We have Michael McDaniels of Shriver Transportation Insurance. Jay Pearson of Century Business Solutions. Myself, Tracy Raymer, also the Vice President of Windy City Limousine and Bus. And we also have Brian Sheely of Epic Limo, who is also our treasurer. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Chris Weiss to just give us an update on the upcoming show that we're having in Dallas and anything that you would like to add.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for including me on the agenda today. And you could probably give this presentation yourself, I'm sure. Yeah, overall, it's extremely exciting to be planning for a show and just be in the throes of it. It's only 3 months away. The show is October 10th through 13th, and it's at the Gaylord Texan, which is just outside of Dallas and a few minutes from DFW Airport. At this point, we know that people are absolutely chomping at the bit to get together and have a face-to-face and see each other. So we're expecting a really strong turnout, and registration has been going really well thus far. Our education committee, led by our very own Tracy Raymer and Jason Sharonell of Broadway Elite, has been working behind the scenes really for months. And we're at the final stages of just finalizing all of the sessions and content and selecting speakers and breaking into subcommittees to really bring the sessions home. And we've got a great slate of topics. Everything's super relevant to what we've all been through over the last year and a half, and what the future looks like. Addressing some of the most important issues, most pertinent topics, hiring and retaining employees and chauffeurs. Going to be a session on lessons learned from the pandemic, mergers and acquisitions, of course. Increasing profitability. We'll have an FMCSA update. Safety and maintenance will be covered. The whole gamut. A lot of interactive stuff as well. And then on top of that, Bill Faith's limo use sessions that he does don't have the topics finalized yet, but he always adds a great flavor to to the program. We're also we're going to be doing our mentoring program again this year, and like we've done the last few times, we'll be not only including mentors but next gen operators, and we're in the process of assembling that roster right now, and probably within the next 2 weeks or so we'll be making those announcements so that everyone can sign up. Also doing our Affiliate Central event, which is probably the most popular event at the show, and we're expecting, as always, just a huge turnout for that. We just got underway with selling tables for affiliates, and just feel like with everyone chomping at the bit to get together and and so many changes and roles changing within companies and people wanting to just reestablish those relationships. We think that that's going to be, a real strong event for sure this year. Some fun, Matt Doss, and I'm sure most of you guys know Matt Doss, former TLC commissioner and, attorney that works very closely with the industry. His band is going to be playing at our opening reception on Sunday night. And, we're going to have some industry players sitting in, hopefully our very own Rob Smentek, who's on the call. And we also have, Rick Versace, board member of the NLA, and from A1A Limo, and Sam Amato from Gateway have, they're going to be sitting in. I know that I don't see Art on the call, but Art's son, Art Jr., is a monster on guitar. And, if he's going to make it down, we would love to have him sitting in. And it's going to be a super fun event. This property, the Gaylord Texan that we're doing the event at is phenomenal. Out of the Gaylords, it's my favorite personally. I just really love it. The layout, the character of it. Again, it's October 10th through 13th. Things are also going really well with, we opened up the exhibit space about 3 weeks ago, and it's filling rather quickly, especially the booths and the OEMs and such. And so that's going super. Same with sponsorships, and some people have been extremely supportive. Ford again is the title sponsor. We have companies like Chosen and Lancer Insurance and Fast Track who have really stepped up again, and tons of others. I could go on. But I think things are really queued up, and we're excited, and we know everyone's stoked to get together for the first time in 16 months or whatever it's going to be, 18 months at that point. Crazy. And so any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So on the show floor, they're going to have a ton of sprinters that are available to all of us that we can all purchase one and have it delivered right away.
No, they're free.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
We're willing to buy. We just want them delivered like fairly quickly, not 6 or 12 months from now.
Yeah, I think that the OEMs, not just the sprinters, are all having issues with product and getting enough product for everyone, and it's
right
across the board.
When you look at Ford closing down their plant,
we do have a number of the sprinter manufacturers that are displaying, and the OEMs as well. I think we'll have a lot of manufacturers. Just you're not going to see the 10 bus plots that we've had in the past with Gretsch and ECB and Forest River. There'll be smaller representation, but I think there'll be a lot of representation, just smaller plots.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense. It's so surreal thinking that 10, 12 months ago, we're all trying to reduce our fleet sizes and getting rid of vehicles, and now we can't buy enough vehicles or get them in fast enough.
Yeah. Yep. And I've talked to, just in the last weeks, some of the heads of the fleet departments, with the OEMs and also with the sprinter manufacturers, and it's a challenge. There's no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you for that. The buzz for the show is absolutely positive. What you see on Facebook, and when you hear everyone talking about it, it's very, very positive. And like you said, I just think people, the industry itself just wants to get together and see each other again. And not to mention, and I don't know if everyone else has noticed it, but when you are watching on Facebook or even some of the affiliate work that's coming in right now, is that you see a lot of new operators that are now dabbling in the affiliate work that I haven't seen before, and they're just doing it for the first time. So I think we're all going to see somewhat of a new market. Yes, many of us have done affiliate work, but I think you see all of your 1, 2, 5 car operators is that they are now into the affiliate work and passing work back and forth. And so with this upcoming show, I think, it'll be pretty cool because you'll see all of these new operators that are doing affiliate work now and being able to meet them for the first time.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions for Chris? And even if it's not about the show, do you have anything about Chauffeur Driven or about the industry while we have Chris on the line?
Chris, are you guys planning any show in Chicago in future?
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
do you guys planning any show in Chicago in the future?
I would love to. We've had Chicago on our radar for a decade plus, but it is a hard place to pull the show off, and the room rates are through the roof. And just the demands that they want, and the room rates don't fit with this group. And we've tried multiple times and gone back to the well and back to the well. I'm not going to say it's a never, because you never know. But we would love to do a show there, and it would be great to do a show there. But it's challenging. The room rates that they want that's one of the hurdles. We just have to be really conscious of what threshold is for what people are willing to pay, and what's beyond that. And
At my last job, we were downtown Chicago, and we had meetings for our clientele in the insurance industry. And most of the time we had to move them outside Chicago, because between the union fees and the hotel rates, you're absolutely right. And it's still, and that was 10 years ago, and it's still the same. It's very, very challenging. But
for our industry, the property has to be attached to the exhibit hall. It has to be together.
Yeah.
It's been proven that trying to do it separately is a disaster. And so that gives you McCormick, basically. And they hold your feet to the fire. We've tried multiple times and have gone up the ladder, and they're just not willing to budge on room rates, and the demands that they hold for food and beverage and all of that. They know it. And so every once in a while we go back and push it. And we did that with Boston too. We really identified Boston as a place we wanted to do a show, and we just kept on pushing it and gave up a couple of times, and still kept on going back to the well because we wanted to do it, and it managed to work itself out. But I don't think it ever will again, for the same reason that after we did it the first time and got the room rate somehow down below 250, they said room rates start at 350, and room rates in Chicago with Marriott or whatever it is that's attached to McCormick are closer to 399 is what they want for our group, and it's just astronomical.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I had a question, but I had to leave for a second. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Chris, so as far as associations, are we going to have any meeting time for associations to get together at the event?
Yeah. The association summit is on the schedule. We haven't really started assembling that just yet, but certainly, you will be, we'll be in contact with you, and we'll start plotting it out.
Okay.
Probably in August at some point. We are allocating booths to a very select few associations, and
We got our
ILLBA is one of those associations. I don't know if Kyle had reached out to you.
We did, and we accepted yesterday.
So that we will probably have 6 to 10 associations represented on the show floor, a few national ones and a few statewide ones, and hopefully you guys are able to represent. That's the main content. I believe I believe the MLOA is going to be holding a meeting, but it's not set in stone. We've had discussions, and hopefully that happens. But that still remains to be seen. But as far as association meetings beyond what I just said, that's what's on the agenda.
Great.
Chris, I booked rooms. When are you guys going to have the agenda together? Do you have any idea of time frame?
Yeah, I mean, I literally later this afternoon, we're trying to finalize it is done, and we're just trying
Sunday
to
going to be an early start?
Pardon me?
Is Sunday an early start?
Not early. It's like around 11:30, so not super early.
Okay. All right.
Typically what we do, and we are, we're at the schedule is done, but I'm working with Sarah this afternoon on, trying to plot in the actual sessions into the right spot so that people could plan accordingly, so that it doesn't just say, a session 1, session 2, and
Right.
that's the remaining piece that we're doing today.
Good.
Okay, anyone else? Going once, going twice.
Ding.
All right, thank you. Did Richard have a question?
No, just an announcement that I'm still not able to book any to come.
Oh,
That's
So-
right, because of restrictions.
Yes, I cannot book the ticket because it says it's blocked still.
oh my gosh.
I'm afraid I will not have the short rate or the low rate option, but whenever it's
We'll take
possible,
care-
I will
we'll
come.
take care of you. Come on now.
Yeah.
No, I was
And-
just
and
trying
it's
to.
no big deal. You'll just have to quarantine for 2 weeks on each end of the trip, and be a fugitive on the run. It's no problem.
I'm fine. I'm fine with the bedroom, Chris. No worries.
There you go.
And some food is also okay. 2 weeks away from home is not that bad.
Yeah, he's a man of simple needs. So there you
Well,
go.
hopefully they lift restrictions
Yeah.
fairly soon.
I absolutely look forward to attend the show anyway. So
So,
hopefully it will be there for me.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, Chris, thank you so much for giving us a few minutes and updating us, and thanks for joining us. Of course, you're more than welcome to stay for the remaining, but I know we've got Rob on as well. So, thank you, Chauffeur Driven.
thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
I also noticed we have Sherry on from Midwest Bus, and I know this is very short notice, but Sherry, I know you've got a show coming up in Indiana, I believe. If you wanted to give an update on that show, you're more than welcome. Or if you want to wait until we're done, you can give an update then.
Hi, thanks, Tracy. Appreciate that. Yes, we are starting in 1 week, so it's kind of crazy right now, and I've got like 50 things going on, as you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate this time. We will be in Elkhart, Indiana, July 21, 22. We have a rodeo driving competition. If anybody would like to send a driver for that, we have a golf outing that's planned at Notre Dame's course. And then we have our anniversary, 10th anniversary dinner, awards dinner, and presentations on Wednesday night. Thursday, we'll have updates from DC and our local regional area reps on other items, as well as site visits to Cardinal Buses and Starcraft Plant Tour. So we've got a lot packed into 2 days, and we're looking forward to getting together again. We appreciate all our sponsors as always and our vendors. If anybody wants any more information, please contact me. Our registration is still open this week. So thank you.
Awesome. It might be a good idea, Sherry, maybe put your contact information in the chat. So if anybody does have questions or they're looking to register, they could just contact you directly then.
Perfect. Thank you.
You are welcome. And thanks for joining us today as well.
Excellent.
Let's see, what do we have next?
Just roll right into it.
I think we can, unless Art, if you had anything that you wanted to add, but although if not, we'll just roll right into the slides and start giving the update for the Chicago ordinance.
No, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Go on.
By the way, if you do go to the Midwest Bus event, the StarCraft tour is awesome. It is awesome. It's phenomenal.
Oh, good to hear.
Yeah, I loved it. And I'm told it's bigger than it was when we went a couple of years ago. We actually took a group from ILLBA there, and it's got great education. The plants are amazing. Okay, so I get to roll into the city stuff. So give me a moment to switch my slide. I actually have a slide here. Let's see. Don't worry, you won't see my lottery tickets or anything, I promise. Okay. Let's see.
And while Paul is pulling up those slides, if anyone has questions, of course, you can put them down in the chat. But while we're giving an update, you're more than welcome to interject. It's not a long presentation. It's not a long one, but if you have any questions, just ask.
It's the shortest one in history. Okay, so let me get right to it here. All right. I'm just negotiating this thing here. Hold on a minute. Okay. All right, why is it? Okay, there we go. Oops, went too fast. Okay, so before we start, we have a couple of reminders of stuff that's going on with regards to the city and some deadlines. So if you're city licensed or your chauffeurs are city licensed, as chauffeurs, the last day to renew livery and chauffeur licenses is July 15th. Anything as of the 16th will be considered out of service or expired. Now, Many people have taken the opportunity to use the email and copy and put their documents together and send them in. And that has been working relatively well. But this is the hard date. So the 15th. You have not, if you're one of our members and you have not seen all the updates with the instructions for preparing your documents, leave your name and email in the chat box and we will make sure you get a
Thank you. You too.
and that will be a way for you to get through it quickly. People have been showing up at the office downtown and they're saying the lines aren't too long, but today is only Tuesday. Also, what's coming up next after that is August 16th is the due date for filing your annual city taxes. At the end of this, I will ask if anyone has any questions with regards to the filing. And if you do, we'll spend a few minutes answering them for you and get you on the right track. And whoever is not on mute, could you please put yourself on mute? Thank you. Okay. This morning, I got another update that I didn't have a chance to add to this list. As of last week, those of you who need to print your ground transportation tax emblems are able to do so. The announcement from finance is that you have a grace period until August 1st for enforcement, meaning if you haven't printed out your emblems and you go to the airport, they're not going to start enforcement till August 1st. I wouldn't wait that long because if you're having any difficulty printing out your emblems, according to finance this morning, it might mean that your account is on a financial hold. So, or something else is going on. So if you have tried to print your emblems and you are having difficulty or it's not allowing you to do so, you need to call the Department of Finance right away to see what the situation is, because it could be a variety of things. And I've answered this question several times this week, so I'll remind everyone, if you are city licensed as livery, you do not need to print your emblems. Only those who are not city licensed need to print their emblems. Livery vehicles are done automatically and the updates are done for you at BACP when you do your license. Okay, so that's it on that.
Before you go to the next one, can you just make sure that nobody has any questions on the licensing or especially the tax filing? I just know that there's been quite a bit of confusion and just some newer operators that are not familiar with the difference between paying your tax at the airport compared to when they deduct it from your account compared to the actual tax filing.
Okay, I was going to do that at the end.
The time to ask.
Would you like me to do that now? I was gonna wait.
Yeah, as long as we're on it, just to make sure everybody understands the tax filing is different than paying your taxes.
Okay, so I'll do this in about 2 minutes or less. I apologize to those who already understand it. So we have multiple taxes with the city of Chicago. The ground transportation tax is a tax that is a Chicago tax that is per vehicle and per vehicle size. So typically, if you are a sedan or SUV, it is $3.50 per vehicle per day that you operate the vehicle in Chicago. That is a city tax. The other tax, and that is the one that you'll be doing your tax filing on annually, and that is also the one where you can have the daily tax deducted from your bank or check or credit card. But I'll tell you more about that in a second. The other tax that we have is the Metropolitan Pier and Exhibition Authority tax, or what they call MEPA. MEPA is not a city tax, it is a state tax, but it is collected by the city of Chicago Department of Finance on behalf of the state. It is a convention tax that is charged on arrivals. It is $4 and up, depending on vehicle size. That is the one where you can have the Shy MEPA app on the driver's phone, or you can purchase paper tax stamps for the smaller vehicles at the airports. For the larger vehicles, 9 and up, you sign in and you pay through the tax filings. So those are the different types of tax accounts we have. The general question we're getting from people right now, and again, if we need to spend a little more time at the end of this, I'll be happy to do that, is there seems to be, for newer operators, a misunderstanding that it because they're being swiped at the airport, when they are picking up passengers, they think that's their obligation for the daily ground tax. That's not really correct, because some days you will not be necessarily traveling into the airport and doing arrivals. You might just be dropping people off. The only time that the city actually is able to scan your license plate is when you're doing an arrival. So each month you should be reconciling your taxes and filing for the difference. And that's a part that the new operators seem to get confused. And regardless of the fact that you are paying, let's say you are paying the tax every day out of your bank account, you still have to not only reconcile, but you have to do an annual tax filing. The annual tax filing is due by August 16th. It's on a fiscal year. So that covers July of 2020 through June of 2021. And that tax filing, you may or may not owe taxes depending on your filing. And you will report all trips that you'll report all days that you worked in at the airport, you worked in Chicago, and then it will calculate for you the appropriate tax that's due. It'll deduct those days that you already paid the tax. So,
Can I add to that?
oh, you could do anything you want.
The other thing you want to look at is if you have any accounts that are colleges or federal or government agencies, they're tax exempt.
Mhm.
So if you did a charter for the day for University of Chicago, that's a tax exempt trip. The only other two taxes that we have are well, actually, there's a non-title use tax. Anything you buy outside of the city of Chicago,
Yep.
that you were not charged Chicago taxes on, if you get audited, they're going to want you to pay those taxes. I think the first $2,400 or something is free, but after that, they have to pay the taxes. And there's a technology tax. Actually, it's a cloud tax. Any computing you have that's cloud-based, whether that's your phone system or your computers, if you're operating off a cloud, if you do get audited, I think it's like 10% or something now.
9 point something.
Yeah, that's on your taxes. And as far as the stickers, I was trying to get my sticker yesterday. I recently went through an audit, so there's no holds on my account. I went through an audit and I was trying to get my stickers, my MPEA stickers for the window, and like, or whatever they are, for the buses and the vans. And I was not able to get them. I ended up waiting on the phone for like an hour and 20 minutes. Talked to someone that said that they won't be available till the 15th.
Is that the city tax? Are you talking about the city tax? I mean, I'm sorry, you're talking about the city
I'm
sticker?
talking about the MPEA sticker that goes on your window.
Okay.
So they told me that they won't be available. The woman says you won't be able to download them till the 15th.
And I just talked to the deputy
You just got
commissioner of
something
finance who
different.
said they're ready to print. So we should talk about that offline. Because I did
You're
talk to
welcome to Chicago.
A, left, right. Okay. So does anybody have any questions before I go to the next slide? And if you do, you can put them in the box too, because Tracy and I are monitoring that. I know that was a quick thing on taxes, but just know that you've got to file your taxes annually. And if you do not, penalties and interest accrue, and also you run the risk of not being able to renew your livery license with Chicago. So if you're stuck, let us know. One of us will help. Okay, on to the next thing. All right. So we wanted to update you, and I'm going to ask Tracy not to jump in at any point. We wanted to update everyone on what we knew so far with regards to the ordinance for the Charter Sightseeing Ordinance and its changes that are supposed to be in effect August 1st. So today, we're going to give you just the quickest run through and let you know exactly what we know as far as what has been approved for change. The package of changes and enhancements were part of a larger initiative that the city embarked upon. It's called Shy Biz Strong. And not to get into a whole lot of detail on it, the bottom line was it's supposed to present um, a number of enhancements and services and changes that will help businesses get back on their feet, protect workers' rights, and also encourage some business growth. So that's the highest level. I'm not going to get into all of it. We had to exhaustively read the 94 pages of changes that were proposed. This particular set of changes had to go through the business licensing committee before it went to the city council. It was approved by city council on the 25th, and I understand the mayor signed it the next day. So what we're waiting for right now is the final copy of these changes that we're going to go over with you today. So what you see here is what was approved. We just do not have the final language yet. So for those of you who are not familiar with our charter sightseeing ordinance, I will give you 30 seconds on that as well. Essentially, since 2016, we've had an ordinance in place that vehicles 15 passenger and larger are operating in Chicago, and whether they had alcohol on board or not, or they were going to any place where the opportunity to consume alcohol existed, which is most of downtown, we were required to have a Illinois licensed security guard on board. The ILLBA and a number of operators over the years have continued to have conversations with the city of Chicago. This has been on the list for a very long time. It's almost 5 years. I looked at the calendar, where we have embarked on a number of discussions, trying to explain the way we operate, the type of business we do, the protocols we have in place for taking reservations, safety, security. And that has been the constant message for the last several years. We meet with the city at least 2 to 3 times a year as we try to work out other things that are going on, obviously. So this opportunity that presented itself as being part of the Shy Biz initiative was very well timed, because it also is encouraging and trying to bring back tourism and hospitality. And obviously, we're a big part of that. We support it. And so with that in mind, these are the changes as we know them today. If you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them. So I broke it down to keep it simple. There's going to be changes that specify trips with no drinking on the vehicle and scheduled stops, meaning your itinerary stops. So as usual, your vehicle has to be either city licensed, or if it's DOT regulated, then it does not have to be city licensed. The chauffeur will be trained in safety and security protocols. This simply means that the chauffeur, in the situation where there is no drinking on the vehicle, will act as take the responsibility for security and safety. And security cameras, we have talked to the city. They asked us if there needed to be any changes to the specs. We said absolutely not. So there are no changes to the camera specs. And what will need to be on the vehicle at all times and provided to inspectors on request is a detailed trip itinerary, written safety and security plans of operation. And I believe that's also going to include some confirmation that this driver has been trained. So in this first example, this would be for any trips where there's no alcohol in the vehicle. The driver would be acting as security. I want to stop right there. Do I need to add anything else, Tracy and Art?
No, I think it's just really important, like you mentioned, that for the commissioner to get this approved by all of the aldermen and to have this presented to city council, they met with ILLBA several different times just to ask for our input. And their main focus, before knowing that it was going to be approved, their main focus was, what do we need to do for the aldermen to feel safe that we don't need a security guard? What training needs to be put in place so that the chauffeur can be that person? And so those were the suggestions that we gave back to the commissioner and the deputy commissioner was this is how we operate our businesses. This is how we train our chauffeurs, you know, in the event. And that's why a majority of our industry really doesn't have these issues. You know, the operators that they're going after, you know, those are the rogue operators that they usually aren't even licensed or they aren't legal anyways. It just so happens that we fall into that category of 15 plus passengers. And, you know, because they can't separate by company, they have to do it as an industry as a whole. So with all of the suggestions that we gave to them on how we do the training for our chauffeurs, as well as it even starts when you take the reservation, they took those suggestions and they presented that to City Council, letting them know because of this additional training, because of the security plan of operation that the industry has provided to us, we feel confident that we don't need a security guard if there isn't alcohol on the bus. So with that being said, you know, we're grateful that they came to us and asked us what it is that we do. So it's just very easy for us to share that information with our membership.
And I think
Yeah,
along with that,
to add to that,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, to add to that, they did. We kind of went back to them and said, you know, what do you want us to do? How should we proceed? And really what they did is they gave us the go ahead to create the training program for them, which I thought was pretty cool. So we, you know, the Illinois Limousine and Bus Association are coming up with the chauffeur training and the company requirements, what has to be in the dash. We're coming up with the criteria of what that's going to be, which I thought was kind of cool that they did it. And you know what we found out through all of these meetings with the city and the aldermen, and we've been doing this forever, and we knew that they really didn't know what we did.
Yeah.
This process just totally I mean, it kind of blew us away. It's like we finished the meetings like, oh my God, they have no freaking idea what we do. They're regulating us, but they don't have the slightest idea of what we do. All they know is that buses have the ability to drop off drunk people downtown that can cause problems. That's all they know.
I mean,
Nothing.
I think I was about to say that. I'm glad you said it. I think the other thing that
Terrible.
was really most interesting to me was, and I talk about this with Tracy a couple of times, the fact that a simple example, they had a conversation with us at one of the meetings and said, wow, you know, there's a lot of bar activity on these limos. And we just kind of all looked at each other because primarily, I couldn't remember the last time we stocked a bar on the stretch. And we kind of explained to them that a lot of stretches are used for weddings and there's no alcohol on board. And, you know, and so every time we meet, we find we are that much closer to them. I really getting a better understanding about how our industry operates and the things we already have in place. And I think that reinforced the confidence they had to go ahead and say, yes, these safety protocols and whatnot will be done. There's a commitment here. So,
And I can add one thing to this also, that I know many of the operators on this call do not operate buses, and this ordinance affects you whether you realize it or not. But one really big thing that we ended up getting, we were able to get pulled out of this, is they were looking at passing this on down to limousines. They were under the impression that stretch limousines were riding around with alcohol in them all the time. So they wanted to extend all of these ordinances to, you know, anyone operating a limousine within the city of Chicago. And we were able to pull it out, get it pulled out. So I think that was a major accomplishment that doesn't show up in this particular document, but I think that's a big thing.
I think, yeah, and we'll constantly be educating them on stuff. I mean, when I said no, when I explained to them that we, for example, if we had any kind of a situation, we would be telling the bride, you know, that if you don't really want to be drinking before you go into church, and most of the time they didn't, you know, we didn't have alcohol in the vehicle, for example, or if we did point to point, we simply dumped it in between trips. So we'll continue to teach them. And I think that's kind of our responsibility, to continue to enlighten them and help them understand how we operate and the things we already have in place. We spent a great deal of time in a couple of meetings ago explaining how many of the companies screen for reservations. and that, there's protocols in place. For example, large trips, many people do not accept large cash trips, or there's a dollar limit. A new customer, they have other protocols before they'll accept a trip. Some do not accept trips after certain hours if there's not an originating trip earlier in the evening, things like that. I won't go into the whole thing, but this is going to be, I feel, down the road, we're going to be continually educating them on the ways we operate and things that change for us so that they're more in tune. So if there's no question on the first one, I'm going to move right to the second one.
Actually, Paula, there is a quick question.
Okay,
So,
Trevor.
so you mentioned that the ILA will create the training. How is that training being disseminated?
We don't have enough detail yet to get too far into it. So we've come up, the board has had several discussions, and the underlying theme is simplicity. So, and flexibility. So right now, I would say it would probably be a simple dissemination to companies who want to do the training themselves, perhaps, and then a program available to those who would prefer to have somebody else do the instruction. We cannot imagine the instruction being more than 30 to 45 minutes for drivers. So I hate to be so vague, and we really don't have much more because we have to review what we plan to do with the city, and we haven't done that yet.
We haven't gotten the final version of the ordinance from the city. So until we get that, and we've been sending them messages like, what do we need to do for the drivers? Do the drivers need to have a certificate of completion, and they're like, yeah, the driver needs to have a certificate of completion, which would mean there needs to be some type of a course out there. So what we're looking at doing is putting something together that's either a written document that the drivers can fill out, or some type of a training course the drivers can do, and maybe have the Illinois Limousine and Bus Association act as an option that'll issue that certificate. As well as maintain a database of all the drivers that have received that certificate. So we're not exactly sure how we're going to proceed with it yet. As I said, we're waiting for the final version to come from the city, and at this point, we still don't have that. Our hands are kind of tied.
Yeah.
As soon as we get it, we're going to roll it out and get stuff moving. We're doing some prep work behind the scenes that we hope is going to get us at the point where we'll have something rolled out well before August 1st. And I know it's the 13th now, but
and we have a good idea on what's going to be included, because they were taking our information and they took all of our suggestions when they presented it to the council. Yes. So we have a really good idea. However, we don't want to put it out there without seeing the final version, because as you know, the city can change at any given time. So we're a little bit leery about putting anything out there without seeing the final version from the city. But what we are envisioning is that it would be like a 30 to 45 minute Zoom where we could put, maybe 20, 30 chauffeurs on a Zoom at a time and just kind of go through the bullet points of what they need to know and what the city wants to make sure that they understand in the case of an event. But we're just thinking it's going to be a 30 or 45 minute Zoom for the chauffeurs.
Yeah. It definitely will not be like the limo or taxi programs, Travis. This is going to be, it's going to be pretty quick. So as soon as it comes out, we'll let members know, and non-members will be invited too. We just have not worked out all the details yet, but I'm glad you asked the question though. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So the second activity, which will be separated out, is trips with drinking on the vehicle that may or may not have scheduled stops. Now, a little background on that. There have been many discussions around vehicles that might be what the city is calling recreational only. They're just going out for a ride and they're just driving around the city drinking on the vehicle. Granted, we explained that most of us don't take trips without an itinerary, but nonetheless, they were concerned. There was still a concern that if there's alcohol on board, even BYOB, that there still be a licensed security guard on board. So if there is any trips with with alcohol on the vehicle, or and BOB or not, BYOB or not, then there will still be the security guard requirement. So the security guard in this example must be an individual that is separate from the chauffeur. If there's no alcohol in the vehicle, the chauffeur is acting as security. You are allowed to have another person if you want, but you will not be required to do so. But in the second example, you will be required to have a separate person acting as security. All right. And again, no changes in the cameras or any of that. And you still will require the trip itinerary, the written safety and security plan of operation in the glove box. And that's pretty much it.
Does the driver need to be trained on if there's a vehicle, if there's alcohol in the vehicle, or no?
Well, if you recall, we had a couple of discussions, and I don't think it would hurt to kind of revisit that and just say, here's if nothing else, I feel that we should at minimum go over the ordinance and break it down into English. Detail. I call it break it down to English, but it's really simplify it so that every person who's driving knows in the glove box is a copy of this ordinance, and in plain speak it says, that you have to make sure that the behavior is okay on the vehicle, and they're not doing drugs and all the other stuff that's in 9-114. So the short answer is I think we should do something. Maybe it's just information, but I don't know if we need to do full on training, but we can talk about that offline. So those are our two. So this is the way the ordinance will be changed for August 1st. We're excited. I think this is a major accomplishment for us as for the industry, because you all, whether you own the buses or not, to Art's earlier point, you can now go out there and market for trips that if there's no alcohol in the vehicle, there's not a charge for security.
Well, it now reduces the cost of a bus by 20 to 40%,
Easily.
like that.
Absolutely. So
This was
Yeah,
originally put through without security guards, even if there was alcohol on the bus. And like a couple days before they voted, the Rosa, the commissioner, started going to the alderman to make sure they were going to approve it. And actually Alderman Riley is the one that made her change it and says he won't approve it unless if there's alcohol on the bus, there needs to be a security guard on the bus. But when it was initially going to the city council for a vote without any requirement for security guards, which would have been even better. But this is what we can get at this point.
So I think that's a really good segue. Oh, first I want to make sure we answer Sherry's question there in case she has to go. Do you know when this will be made official through publishing?
No, what we're trying
When we get it from the city, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
Right, sorry, what I'm trying to get at is, you said that this is supposed to take place on August 1st, but it's still subject to review of final versions and it hasn't been published. Is this typical of federal regulations where this is what they're going to do, but it's not in regulation until it's published on that date? Is this the same?
I see your question. I don't know. We can ask.
We're being told that this is it. What has to happen now is the commissioner and deputy commissioner have to have someone write up the verbiage, that's going to be published in the ordinance, and then we can actually write our part. So, for instance, they told us that all the chauffeurs need to be trained. They didn't specify what evidence of the chauffeur training, if any, is required. So it may be that, somebody could board the bus and ask the chauffeur if he's trained, and the chauffeur says, yeah, I'm trained, and it's done. Or it may be that the chauffeur needs to have some type of certificate showing that he or her has been trained. These are the kind of things that we're kind of working through. We know what the requirements are, but not completely all of it.
So I think I can answer Sherry's question. So Sherry, as far as the rule of law, the law will be updated in AM Legal for August 1st. But in addition to that, they'll be writing regulations, which they'll be sharing, which bring that down a level of detail and kind of interpret it for all of us. So that's what Art's referring to. And the law itself has been approved. I haven't gone out to AM Legal today to check and see if the language has been updated. But this particular Shy Biz initiative has so many changes in it, all related to licensing. And taxi has a significant amount of changes. So we know it's going to take them a while to get through it. But we'll ask them once we have our next meeting whether or not, when August 1st happens, how is this all going to be played out? Because I don't think any of us have 100% certainty. But
I mean, we've got emails out to them asking for the final version. We're not waiting, but we're just waiting for their response.
yeah, so we
haven't gotten one yet.
For sure.
Brad Wallace asked a similar question. Is there a sample written safety and security plan of operation that addresses what is needed?
Not yet, but we're thinking about coming up with a sample. I think we've had conversations with the board and just conceptually. And I think the one thing we keep coming back to is we can provide you all with some guidance on what to include in it. But at the final analysis, it should be coming out with your company logo and information on it. So we'll definitely have something for the members to work from as a template. I just don't at this point know what it's going to look like. I think I answered the question. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think you did, and as far as the association, since we've been working with the city on this is, I think the board needs to decide once we see the final version that, how does the association send this out to its members and even its non-members? So Sherry, with your association as well, does it work where the ILLBA is able to do these 30, 45-minute Zooms with 20 or 30 chauffeurs on at a time, and maybe it's $5 or $10 a chauffeur, and that once you complete it, you get a certificate of completion, and it covers all of the points that we have been talking about with the city as well as their final version. And so within 45 minutes, you know that your chauffeurs are completely done and you have everything that the city is asking of you in a fairly quick manner. So it's kind of what the board is working on right now. And the only holdup that we have at this point is waiting for that final version, making sure that everything that we have on our bullet list to share with our members and to train the chauffeurs, if you will. And I think training, I guess that's the right word, but is to make sure that the final version includes everything that they want on there. So that when you are traveling within the city of Chicago, and if your bus is boarded, and they ask, okay, let me see your safety of operations, what's it called? Security plan of operation, that you have everything included on there and that the chauffeur can confidently say, yes, I went through that training. I know what I'm supposed to do.
And that goes for our out-of-state operators too, like Lynn. Don't forget, I mean, this still applies when you're visiting Chicago. What about no drinking alcohol and no interim stops?
What do you mean? You're just passing through Chicago?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Let me see.
If you're just passing through Chicago, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
No, if you're just going to one stop,
One stop.
one
No,
place, and you're dropping.
As long as
one place,
there's
you're picking up.
no alcohol on the bus, you just need to have a plan of action in your glove box, and the chauffeur has to be trained and what to look for in the event if the group starts going rogue. Pretty much it.
Yeah.
So that there's nothing required other than you need to have an itinerary. Driver has to have an itinerary. There has to be the plan of action or training, whatever, in the glove box, and the chauffeur has to be trained. As long as that happens, you can actually go bar hopping with them. It doesn't matter.
As long as it's on the itinerary.
Right.
As long as it's on the itinerary, right?
Right.
I mean, you can go to 15 bars, doesn't matter.
But Brad, like with your one stop, the enforcement officer doesn't know that bus is only making one stop. So you still may be boarded with that one stop.
Yes,
So it would still be required that you would have to have the itinerary available, and you would have to have the security plan of action available, even if it was only one stop, just because that enforcement agent doesn't know that you're only making one stop.
right? That's how we've kind of gotten around it, is that we're not making interim stops. We just go into town, we're dropping somebody at whatever. And if we're picking them up later on, it's a different itinerary and the bus is gone, you know?
Right.
So
Right.
we haven't really done a lot of stuff where we're down there and we're milling around, hanging out, going from stop to stop. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question, though.
Good to see you.
Well, kind of see you. But I think, I think that, and more questions will probably come up as we start laying this all out even further, but I think this is a tremendous change. It helps most people. There may be one or two who are going to still have to continue to have security guards, but at the end of the day, this is a huge breakthrough. Two things I want to add, though. First of all, as far as enforcement, we really and questions about enforcement in general have been coming up. And given given the situation we've been in, the COVID situation where they haven't been issuing tickets even at the airports, things are changing. So while we don't have any information that they're going to start any kind of immediate enforcement, I think people need to realize that it's been a very long, 14, 15 months. And we are already seeing at the airport enforcement activity. So for airport related stuff. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that once this is in place and at some point they'll start to do some boarding again. So this is a great opportunity to get this into play. But I think, the reality is we can expect some stuff to happen. Not right away, I don't think, but at some point. The other thing, and this is a conversation Tracy and I were having the other night, I think this whole activity and the fact that we got as far as we have brings up a really interesting challenge. Last month, some of you sat in on the June coffee meeting, and we had a conversation about advocacy and how it was important to advocate for certain activities and get more involved. This mostly, because it was on such a fast track, it really ended up mostly in the hands of, and it's not about who did it and who didn't, but it ended up in the hands of about 4 people and about 160 hours of work in about 4 weeks to get calls to aldermen, calls to officials, put together Q&As, meetings with the city, etc. That's not to say we haven't been working on it, but as soon as they started rolling and the dates were getting closer for the first committee, we were expected to be ready. The problem is this, and I think we need to think about it for the future, and we will continue to talk to members about it, and it's part of being involved in helping support these efforts. The fact of the matter is the effort, it falls on a handful of people, but at the same time, we still are not well known in Chicago or even in the state. And it would be a real shame if we don't take this advantage to start to really advocate for the future and not wait until we have someone from the city calling us and saying, okay, we think we can finally get this into an ordinance change. And then we're scrambling around like crazy people trying to get in front of people who have never met us before in our area. So it's a little bit of a pitch for advocacy. And I've had a couple of conversations with individual board members about it as well. I think it's a perfect example that we cannot wait until something comes up and then we say, okay, all right, you know the guy at Choose Chicago, you make that call. Tracy, you make this call. George from Windy City made a couple of calls. It's not good. It doesn't look great for us to go out, meet officials and say, I know you don't know me, but I have a problem. So you're going to see a little bit more in the coming months from us about advocacy and trying to get in front of things. And I just wanted to share that because this is a perfect example. If we didn't have the resources that we had, we may have missed this date and missed this opportunity. And not that any of us would have let it happen, but it was very challenging to get a lot of things pulled together.
You know, and something I learned throughout this entire process, as well as a few other issues when we were going back and forth with rideshare.
Mhm.
But when you sit in on those city council, and the one good thing about COVID is those city council meetings are now available on Zoom or with their Facebook group.
Yeah.
But you watch those city council meetings and the decisions of the aldermen, they're already made before they come in. So it's nice that they say, oh, you'll have 3 minutes to speak and state your case and why they should vote a certain way. But I'm telling you, watch one of those city council meetings. Some of them, they're talking to each other while people are speaking. Some of them are sleeping. Some of them aren't even there. Others are just walking around the room and stretching their legs. And so there's no way that a decision is being made because you're up there speaking. So to Paula's point, like it is so, so important to be able to reach those aldermen before they walk in to vote and make sure they understand what they're voting on and the industry that they are affecting and why their vote matters, is they really have to hear that before the day of the vote or before they go in and decide they're going to make a difference, because they truly are not listening to those people that are speaking there. And I was very, very surprised that that is how policies are created and made.
And that's why we knew, like, because each proposed legislation goes to a particular committee. That's how our government works. We knew that was going to go to licensing. So we know we had our encounters with Chairman Mitz before and all that. But still, we had to still go down to that level and make sure that there was conversations, because if that committee, they said no way, it wasn't even going to get to city council. So to Tracy's point,
and our regulations are really coming from 3 downtown aldermen that are basically stating what they want and don't want to happen in the Loop area. So we may want to look at having some type of fundraiser for them so that they know who we are and maybe donate to them. One thing that became very apparent to me listening to all these city council meetings is they're the greediest group of people you're ever going to meet in your entire freaking world. Their biggest fight was part of this shy initiative thing for Chicago was to allow restaurants to put A signs in front, like a 3-foot high A sign that maybe has their menu on it. And the aldermen were adamant that they did not want to allow a restaurant to put an A sign in front of the restaurant unless it was approved by them. It would have to be approved by them before they could put any signage on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant.
Which was a 5 to 12 week process.
Yeah, and the issue with that, what they want is they want the restaurant to come back to them and either donate to their campaign or give them free meals. Something has to happen. There's something that's greed. It's like complete greed. And aldermen that had nothing to do with it were chiming in saying, you know what, no, can't have people doing anything without our approval. You know, our wards, we need to control our wards and make sure that, you know, everything is operating as it should. And it's just so much greed.
but once we get in front of them and they start to know who we are, I think we'll be in a far better place. All
But I
right.
think we have to get in front of them with some money or something
Well,
more than just getting in front of them.
Whether it's money or not, I think the whole thing. Okay, Ileana, you had a question? I see you raised your hand, Ileana.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry.
No worries.
My question is there any way, can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
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 Is there any way we can initiate a collaboration with already established association that is already working with the city of Chicago in order to get us more exposure? So this way, you know, when they know that we are already working with somebody else, just for exposure purposes, nothing else.
Do you mean like collaborating with another association or?
Yes, like the restaurant association or the meeting planner association, you know.
We've been talking about that, yes.
Associations that are having some way with the city and just for introduction purposes.
Yeah, I was sharing with the board how, I don't know how much of the news you actually saw, but you know, Sam Toya of the Restaurant Association was at every press conference because a big chunk of this these changes were affecting the restaurants and hospitality. So you're right. That is one thing we've talked about, is getting a little closer to some of the associations. But I
Well,
think,
I think to Ileana's point, a perfect example of that is the letter that Art received from Choose Chicago. And actually, I think, with everyone on this call is, Paula, maybe you can send that letter to everyone that's on this call. But I do believe that letter definitely made a really positive point for our industry in convincing the aldermen that this was a good idea. And so, that was to Ileana's point, was collaborating with other associations for tourism, speaking on our behalf that we are part of that industry.
absolutely.
Another thing that was in the works to take place that never actually materialized is the commissioner, along with the president of the Choose Chicago, were trying to get us a seat, someone from our association, a seat on the board of Choose Chicago, which would have been tremendous. And we're going to continue to work on that. But that would be like the holy grail, because at this point, Choose Chicago is directing the city on tourism, what should be done, what shouldn't be done for tourism. If we can achieve that, I think it would be a great help in us moving forward with aldermen, whatever, getting in to see them. It'll do a lot.
Absolutely.
At this point, we have not been able to do that, though. It takes time.
But it takes time, but I think we're going to try to keep it on the front burner for a bit, so that we don't get into the situation a year later where they decide to do something else and we are running crazy trying to get support or get people engaged. So I would say that's the biggest lesson for us. I will send the letter that came out from David Whitaker to everybody when I send the recording link, which you'll all get the recording link today. So
Hey, Paula,
yes.
you mentioned advocacy. Are you looking for the board to solely play the role of this
No.
advocacy activity?
We are looking for members to get involved as well. As I remember, you've been with us before on this,
So is there a push to maybe have a subcommittee, maybe an advocacy subcommittee?
Yes. In fact, we've been talking to other associations about things that they're doing to, encourage people to get more involved. And I'm hoping we have a few more conversations off to the side. But yes, if it was up to me alone, I would love to see a legislative committee, because I think we really do need one. It's not going to be active every 10 minutes, but things come out and it would be great to be on top of them rather than, trying to engage people. Because we do, part of having a group that would work on advocacy means we also have to provide coaching and support. It's not just a handful of people that we're going to say, okay, there's a meeting, just show up here. Not to disparage or belittle some of the other organizations, but when taxi people show up at meetings, sometimes they were before the unions, they weren't organized and they just show up and start screaming and yelling. We don't want that. We want to help people to do it in the most professional way possible. So it would be on the association to help with scripts, do some coaching, get people up to speed on the politics. We haven't been to a day on the Hill since 2015. I think you actually were one of the ones that's on this call that was Day on the Hill with us. So we definitely have some work to do. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, and you know what, too? A lot of times the alerts that we're getting are actually coming from regulators that we've made friends with. I mean, this thing for this bus ordinance came directly from the commissioner and deputy commissioner. They called us and said, listen, this is what's going on. We know you've been asking for this bus thing. You've been hounding us about the security guards. This is the opportunity to try and move it forward. And that's really where it came from.
I think the other thing we learned is, and Travis, I think you can understand this because you're in the city like I am, that when we have an issue, we can't just go in there by ourselves. we tried that and we went after all this information and we, had meetings initially just our organization. And then we had that, shining moment when we realized that, hey, you know what? All the industries that we support, the conventions, the hotels, the restaurants, the hospitality industry as a whole, need to be at the table. So I think we learned a lot, and we have a lot we can share and enhance on. But yes, definitely that is on our list, is to put together a committee. So I'll be inviting all of you. Do we have any other questions before we wrap it up? Any last thoughts from Art or Tracy?
No, I'm just glad to hear that Sherry and Midwest are having their event. So that's a good start to having events again. And Chauffeur Driven coming up in October. It's right around the corner. So I think it's time that ILLBA also plans just an informal get together. It's been 18 months or so since we've had one, and that we have an informal get together too. I think we need to start talking about that.
Yep. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, and good seeing everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry. And
Thank
thanks,
you.
everyone. Have a great day. And thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.